Here we will examine the cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are the nerves that emerge from various parts of the brain. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves, and each pair has a right and a left branch. The first 2 pairs of cranial nerves emerge from the cerebrum, while the remaining 10 pairs emerge from either the pons or the medulla oblongata of the brainstem. The first cranial nerve is called the olfactory nerve, and this nerve is purely a sensory nerve in that it carries sensory information from the olfactory sensory receptors of the nose to the brain. The nerves themselves are the small extension from the base of the olfactory bulb, and those nerves extend directly into the nasal cavity. The olfactory bulb and olfactory tract are technically brain structures, so they belong to the central nervous system and not the peripheral nervous system. The 2 olfactory bulbs sit on top of the ethmoid bone. This bone has small perforations in it that are called the cribriform foramina, shown in the image on the right side, that allow for the passage of the olfactory nerves into the nasal cavity. So this diagram only shows the olfactory bulb and the olfactory tract, which again are central nervous system structures. The second cranial nerve is called the optic nerve, and this nerve is purely sensory in its function as it conveys visual sensory information from the retina of the eye to the brain. The nerves themselves are the thick bundles that are found between the eyeball and the optic chiasma. The optic chiasma and the optic tract are brain structures, and thus are considered part of the central nervous system. The diagram in the upper left only shows the optic chiasma and the optic tract leading to the brain. So why do the optic nerves and the optic chiasma have this unusual X-shaped configuration? It turns out that some of the neurons from one eye send information to the occipital lobe on the same side of the brain, that is the ipsilateral side, and some neurons are crossed over within the optic chiasma to the opposite or the contralateral side of the brain. Our visual cortex in the occipital lobe then uses the input from both eyes to form three-dimensional images and give us depth perception. The third cranial nerve is the oculomotor nerve, and as its name implies, this is a motor nerve that controls muscles of the eye. There are 6 skeletal muscles that surround and attach to various parts of the eyeball. These are called the extrinsic eye muscles. The oculomotor nerve controls 4 of these 6 extrinsic eye muscles, shown here in the red boxes. Their names are not particularly important yet, but we will learn about them when we get to the module that discusses the anatomy of the eyeball. The parasympathetic fibers, which are part of the autonomic division, regulate smooth muscles that control lens shape as well as pupil diameter. Cranial nerve number 4 is referred to as the trochlear nerve. This nerve is primarily a motor nerve, which carries motor commands to one of the 6 extrinsic eye muscles. In particular, the nerve that it communicates with and controls is the superior oblique muscle. Damage to this nerve causes double vision, because the affected eye is not able to move correctly and therefore not able to focus on the same object as the other eyeball. The 5th cranial nerve is called the trigeminal nerve, and this is a massive nerve that innervates much of the face and mouth and has 3 major branches. The presence of these 3 branches is why it's called the trigeminal nerve. This is the first mixed nerve of the cranial nerves. Its fibers carry sensory information to the brain, particularly about pain, temperature, and touch from the face and the teeth, and it also conveys motor commands to skeletal muscles that are involved in chewing. The 6th cranial nerve is called the abducens nerve. It is primarily a motor nerve that controls one of the extrinsic eye muscles. In particular, the muscle that it controls is the lateral rectus muscle. Damage to this nerve causes the lateral rectus muscle to become paralyzed, and the lateral rectus muscle helps to keep the eyeball pointing forward. And when this muscle is paralyzed, the other 5 extrinsic eye muscles pull the eyeball in a medial direction.